Well, good afternoon or good evening, depending upon where you are, or good morning, I suppose. I'm Rob Grimes with the IFBTA, and today we are really pleased to have a webinar, but I'm going to call it a conversation with Toast, who puts out the U.S. restaurant sales report and analysis of what's going on in the marketplace. And we thought we would share that with you in a conversation of the various trends and things. And so we're happy to have you join us today. Let me go ahead and introduce our conversation guests. And if we just flip that slide, uh, I'm really pleased today to be joined by Kelly Esten, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Toast, and Brian Koerber, who is the Principal Brand Journalism and News, and actually the brains on this call here, because I'm not taking credit, and I think I can see Kelly shaking her head as well on this as we get the data. And it's going to be a very fascinating session. Before we get started, and I turn it over to them, let me just give you a couple of housekeeping items. If you have some questions, you want to submit them, you can put them in the Q&A, and we will be able to take them and do them. And if we don't get to all of them, because this is a big subject today, we'll go ahead and try to handle them later on. But you're really, and we want to thank those, by the way, who already submitted some in advance. So let me go ahead and turn over the introductions. And Kelly, I think we'll start with you, and because you really are part of the voice and the messaging that comes out. So Kelly.
Rob, first of all, thank you so much for having us. We're so thrilled to be sharing this research and data with the IFBTA community and to be partnered with the IFBTA this year again. Brian will be the one, as you mentioned, he's the brains behind this report. It's a report we put out quarterly based on the data we collect by having almost 150,000 restaurants on the Toast platform. That allows us to really dive deep as to what's happening in the restaurant industry. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to hand it over to Brian on our team, who leads all of our brand journalism and news at Toast, and very specifically, this quarterly report. So Brian, over to you.
Thanks, Kelly, and thanks, Rob. Really appreciate everyone's hospitality. Real quick, there are so many more smart people behind this than me. I'm just the voice here today, and really big, huge thank you to the Toast team for allowing us to do this and for really putting data and trends forward for the industry. I think it's really important, and I think it's one of the better things that we do out there in the public right now. So real quick, my background: worked in restaurants from when I was too young to work in restaurants. And then after that, I was a journalist for Mashable.com, and then joined Toast about 3 years ago, where I have taken on data storytelling and news. So here's what we're going to talk about today. So we have done, I believe, 15 of these reports since 2022 on a quarterly basis, as well as a bunch of other one-off reports that we do based on holidays like 4th of July, or we also did like the Beyonce concert recently and its impact on Atlanta. So some of the things that we're going to be covering today is summer so far. Summer's almost over, I know, but we looked at the first couple of weeks of summer and then compared it to 2024. And some of the things that we found is that there was some mixed transaction growth based on various regions of the United States, states and cities. The city with the best growth for transactions specifically was Naples, Florida. And then also what we found is that full service tipping rates have dropped to a 7-year low, the lowest since we started recording them, at 19.1%. So with that, I would love to talk about some of the methodology, if that's okay, if that's of interest.
That would be great. I mean, what's behind it? Because, I'm thinking as you're introducing this that why is a POS company, and you're more than a POS company, but why is a technology solution provider not doing this? But I'm realizing how much data you gather, and basically what you're saying is we can tell the health and what's going on in the country when you're talking about Beyonce concerts, right? Based upon people's eating habits and how they're frequenting, establishments and things. I mean, it seems like this is a data point that's probably missed by a lot of industries out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple reasons we do it. Number one is for our customers. We want to show that we have the data that they can also use to improve performance, hopefully in their business, and to make knowledgeable decisions when they're faced with something like weather or what food trends are happening. And then we also like to give voice to the restaurant industry and really share with, in pretty easy terms that are easily digestible, with the media, with the general public, what's going on, and so that they can better inform themselves and just generally better inform the
You're
public on
sharing
what's going
data, by
on.
the way, with some of the industry associations as well, not just through the IFBTA,
Yeah.
but the big ones that are out there that cut across multiple areas. And I find that very interesting as well, because you have such a pulse on the operations, given the bandwidth and the breadth of your customer base.
Yeah, we get requests honestly every day. We get them from little small blogs to the big newspapers to state associations, as well as more national ones as well. So we're,
Great.
we're we're always happy to share as well, and we publish all of our findings publicly on our website
So
as
what's
well.
the secret sauce and how do you do this?
The secret sauce, I think the secret sauce is to, number one, listen to our customers. That is absolutely number one. We spend a lot of time talking with customers, understanding what their pain points might be, understanding what their successes might be, and then diving into all those little things given the platform data that we have. So we spend a lot of time listening, and then we'll go in and we'll say, okay, well, is this true? Are we seeing this in the data? Because the data doesn't lie, and everyone's experience at a restaurant owner, operator, to an employee is different, right? Block to block is different, city to city is different. So really trying to showcase what's happening at a macro level, and then at a national level is
And let
something
me
that's
tell
really
you, I go
important
into
to
a
us.
lot of restaurants like everybody, and you can just sort of see that toast is block to block and at all levels and stuff like that. I'm in New York City right now. It's very difficult to go in a restaurant here and toast is not sitting there.
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah, awesome to hear. We love hearing that.
All right, so go to it.
Yeah. So we compared for this section of the report June 2nd, 2024 to July 15th, 2025. So first 6 weeks of summer. I know that's not officially the start of summer, but that's when summer starts for us, to ensure that both time periods covered the same number of days. So if one had an extra Saturday in there, that would really throw off the numbers. So we wanted to make sure that they had the same days of the week. All restaurant types were included, from a small bar to a quick service restaurant to a full service restaurant to a fine dining full service restaurant. And then we did a little bit of playing with some of these areas. So Cape Cod includes all restaurants on Cape Cod. That's more of a region and not a city. Portland, Maine also includes Portland South, Portland, Cape Elizabeth, and Falmouth. And then we combined Boston and Cambridge. We could have broken them out. We didn't want to show our allegiance to Boston because we are a Boston-based company, but we also know that there's such a small, tight-knit community that, like, just jumping over the train on one stop, Boston and Cambridge, we combined for them. There's great restaurants in both of those. And then these are all same store sales. So we're comparing 2024 to 2025. All of these restaurants were on the platform the entire time, from the start to the end. And then we're going to talk about tipping later. That's a little different. That's a snapshot view. So it's any of the restaurants on the platform in that given quarter.
Great. So you're really covering a lot.
Yeah,
A lot of ground, a lot of different industry segments. I mean, you got a lot of data, and this data all comes through like the platform, and I mean, I know you have other outside sources, but you also have, I suppose, you also have all your partners feeding you data because you really pull it all together.
Yeah. So for this specific report and the ones where we're talking about transactions and we're talking about numbers, specifically raw numbers, these are all platform data, which is really, really, I can't really think of another example of almost 150,000 restaurants in the US. So it is really powerful data, and we're really proud of having such great data.
Great.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
what are we learning?
Yes. So when we look at when we zoom out to the national level, there's actually a slight uptick in transactions in 2025 compared to 2024, which is good news. Anytime it's up, that's awesome. That means more people were going into restaurants and enjoying themselves, ordering food, ordering drinks. Items per ticket is something else we track. It was pretty steady, which is good because it means that guests aren't going in and maybe not ordering that appetizer, maybe not ordering that dessert, or, etc. We found mixed regional performance, with coastal cities really driving the growth in a lot of this summer report. I
Well,
mean,
it is the summer.
it is the summer, and I would attribute that to people vacationing, but people vacationed a little bit more in coastal cities, at least going out to restaurants, than they
But
did
that
in
in itself is a
2024.
trend, by the way. You're pointing,
Absolutely.
you're able to see where people's travel preferences are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when we dive into the city specifics, you'll be able to see, even in certain states, that there's a little bit of a difference between where people are traveling and where they're not. I think
So you're going to tell us
Florida
where
will
to
call
book
out
next summer,
specifically.
right? You're going to tell us where our next summer vacation should
Yeah, absolutely. I have some
be. Right.
suggestions. I'm sure Kelly does as well. Um, and then, what's affecting this? Why are some cities doing better? Why are some cities doing worse? Inflation is definitely top of mind for everybody. Discretionary spending, of course. We've seen reports of, this is a data point from elsewhere, but reports in decline in international travelers this summer. And potentially, like, I don't have data on this, but maybe the reason we're seeing some coastal cities perform more is because people aren't traveling internationally from the United States elsewhere. So we're seeing them travel within the United States instead. That's a possibility. And then regional weather, like, affects can impact daily operations so much. I'm a little bit of a weather nerd, I have to admit. So this is something I love to, like, kind of dial in on. But it can truly affect, and we'll get into some numbers in some cities there.
Well, I
And
wonder
then,
if the international travel, by the way, impacts portion size, because people always complain when I travel outside the US that our portions are too big here, but yet the sales went up, right? So if the sales went up, you know,
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I don't even know
Americans
how I
still ordering
correlate
all the
that, right?
food. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
see it.
mean,
I get where you're going with that,
there you go.
for
But
sure.
that might impact the food preferences, which I know you're going to get into.
absolutely, definitely. Great. So we looked at 20 cities. We picked these cities before we pulled the data. No cherry picking data. That's one rule that we always have when we look at cities. We do not look at them beforehand and then give you the best stuff. And we tried to pick cities that have a strong summer activity presence. And at the top, Naples, Florida, 8% year over year is just incredible growth. Really, really pleased to see that for Naples. I know that their downtown has had some reports of struggling, but this being 8%, I mean, we were really pumped to see that. And as well as Portland, Maine area, 5%. I know, as we talked about, Maine is a great summer travel destination, and, has great seafood and some great restaurants. So really happy to see that. And then, if you're just looking kind of at the trends here, we're seeing a lot of um, a lot of northern cities like New York, um, and Portland doing better than some of the West Coast cities and cities in the South.
Yeah,
So
Brian, I was surprised to see Florida at the top of the list, because I think, isn't that hot in the summer? And I'm more expected to see the strong performance from the northern cities, like you mentioned.
yeah, it was actually one of the things we were tinkering with. We were like, should we look into Florida? And then we decided we actually should, because there's a lot of people in Florida, and they do
Yeah,
love to go to the beach.
that makes
So
sense. I guess if you're in Florida, you got to go to the beach. That
you
makes
got to go to the beach. And then, but also Florida, it was a little bit of a mixed bag, right? You see Sarasota flat, you see St. Petersburg -4% in transactions, and then Orlando 1%, so a little bit of growth, but not a ton.
We're going to be in Orlando next week for FS Tech, so I think that we'll have to check out those
Check out the
stats
restaurant
against that,
scene.
because the
Yeah,
summer's just barely over here. So
I'm missing it this year, but the Toast team will be there in full force. So keep an eye out for them if you're there. It'll be fun.
awesome.
we're
I'm
going to have
jealous.
to
I would
carry
love
on
to
this
go.
conversation without you then. So there you go.
Awesome. So what's driving this growth, right? We saw Naples, at the absolute top for the cities that we looked at. And we tried to look at the dining behavior changes. So we categorized them into three, though there are, arguably more. But delivery, dine in, and takeout, right? So when we look at Naples, Florida, down the bottom left here, plus 9% dine-in. So nine, that's, and we're talking about transactions here, just to be clear, transaction counts. Delivery happened to be down, but not, didn't take as much of a hit out. And then takeout was actually up 6%. So really awesome to see that this, mixed growth and like how restaurants can kind of view these types and say, okay, it's not just me, my delivery is not the only one that's down. I'm not doing something wrong, but then also considering what can I do to change that?
But isn't that also a reflection of some things that really changed post-COVID, where delivery or dine-in became a day part? Because I
Absolutely.
don't think it was viewed. It was the holy grail. Well, Kelly, I saw that you just celebrated, I think it was 8 years with Toast, right? So you saw this before. I pay attention to these things, right? So I was thinking about what happened before. And, the Holy Grail, and Brian, you were in the restaurant business before you were old enough to actually be legally in it. So I got that one too. So, the Holy Grail of any restaurant was to figure out either how do I get another visit a month, or how do I increase my check average, right? And of course, control my costs too, right? Well, this whole piece about delivery and people eating out created a new day part and probably helped to, add to that. And I'm just hoping that restaurants are focused on that as a day part, specifically, and not just including it in with my takeout, delivery like that, like drive-through is in QSR.
Yeah, I do think that there's a little bit of data that suggests that people are trading delivery for takeout. And I think, Brian, to your point in the opening, as far as inflationary pressure, discretionary spending, I do think people sometimes feel like delivery gets expensive. And so, seeing that trade happening so directly in some of these markets is a really interesting data point for us to continue to track.
Yeah, absolutely. I paid $80 for pizza the other day.
I know. It happens.
And it was worth it. And it was a restaurant that I love. But guess what? It was Friday and I didn't want to leave the house. I was done with the work week and I said, you know what? But then the next day, me and my wife went out to eat. So it was very nice.
So listen, at some point, I had this conversation on a panel at the bar restaurant show last year, and we were talking about, and that's not the subject of what we're doing, but the impact of cannabis, being legalized, and that you would think that people's check averages would go up because you get the munchies, which is what I sort of learned in college. Not that I know anything about this. However, it's actually the opposite because people are eating at home and not going out.
Oh, interesting.
You take a look at alcohol consumption, and people are going for premium.
Alcohol consumption, yeah.
That's all here. So there's a lot of interesting things that we can drive from the smart guy in the room here, bringing these forward.
Yep. Everyone's doing pizza and a movie on Friday nights. That's what I'm learning.
There you go.
Yeah.
For $80. Take in. Because Brian didn't feel like going out.
Not if you take out. Not if you take out.
There you go.
Absolutely. And then also, to a little bit on this like behavior change too, and like what restaurants could do to adapt. Rob, you mentioned, the growth of the growth of takeout and delivery in the last couple of years, which also, like, Toast is absolutely proud to be a huge part of that for restaurants to be able to allow online ordering and things that's easy for consumers to use. But also I think there's another section here of like, what other avenues can restaurants do to, provide great food and hospitality, and maybe something that's not so, that's not these three categories. Like,
well, sure, there are new and innovative ways, and we see pop-ups, and we see people going in all kinds of different places, including trucks. And there is, but also, you know what? The metrics that you're pulling forward, we should not assume that it's the same metrics if you're doing delivery, takeout, pop-up, that, what you want to sell, how you want to sell it, those stats and the cost, you need to break those costs out.
Yeah, absolutely. And recently also, Kelly can probably speak to this better than me, but we launched our Toast Go 3, which has cellular capabilities, which is one way that I think that restaurants could potentially just think outside of the box of what a restaurant is and what service means and what hospitality means. Being able to go to places that don't have Wi-Fi, being able to, use your POS system and use the technology that helps you run your restaurant outside of the four walls of your restaurant.
Yeah, a lot more opportunities for events, catering, pop-ups, outdoor service, lots of fun to be had.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. Okay, my favorite part, weather.
We're now at Brian's peak.
Yeah.
Peak
Can I share something personal? I recently
Sure.
bought a weather station. Like really embarrassing. I recently bought like a little weather station, and I look at it on my app and I can see how much rainfall I got. And my wife, despite us not having kids, is like, "You're in your peak dad era, Brian, right now." So a little embarrassing, but anyway, here's how weather affects restaurants. Portland, Maine.
Don't let it affect your mood, though. You know, if you're constantly monitoring the weather, it's like constantly monitoring your stock. You know, it
Oh
could
no,
put
I
you in a
love it,
bad
Rob. If a
mood,
storm's
right?
coming, I love it. I want to
Yeah,
see
but
it.
now maybe rain collection's a good thing, you know?
Yeah, no, it's a good thing.
And that's when you place that $80 pizza order prior to everybody
Oh,
else
there you
ordering
go.
it because you know it's coming.
You're
Gonna
not
have-
wrong, actually. So we looked at like daily transaction data from 2025 compared to 2024. And we just were like, why are some days doing better than others? Why are there big spots of red here? And why are there big spots of green? So doing a little bit of research, not all the time, like some of the time it was, days of the week or the 4th of July holiday or Juneteenth, but a lot of the time it was weather. Um, for instance, in Portland, Maine, they had a new daily high of 99 degrees on Tuesday, June 24th, and the Tuesday that week beforehand was nice. It was beautiful weather. So that led to negative 38% decline in transactions, just that extreme heat and extreme weather for Portland. People decided to stay inside or go to the beach and not go to, maybe not, it might be a little hot for the beach, but not go out to restaurants and
Is there a way
enjoy the house.
to if you're monitoring that? So what we're talking about right now is data that's being used after the fact, right? But if you're monitoring that, and we know that you guys are connected real time, with the restaurants, if people are doing production for the next shift or they're doing something like that, and you see those trends, I wonder if you can turn around the data that you're doing after the fact to actually be like a message that you would send out before.
Yeah, I think one of the next big things is like sales projections and incorporating weather into that. I think that's a huge data point that like number one, restaurants should be monitoring, I think, and most businesses should be monitoring the weather regardless. But being able to forecast that a little bit with how they did last year is potentially like
Well, the opportunity for
huge
you
unlock.
is actually bigger than that because every people do look at the weather. They do look and see what concerts are coming, like Beyonce and stuff like that. However, you have personalized data on each person's operation that you can help them on a one-to-one basis. And so how's the weather going to impact me for a pizza guy is different than somebody, who's selling tacos or hot
Yeah.
dogs, which are not sandwiches, by the way. And how are they going to do it? And that's proactive.
Yeah,
And I
we see
bet
this
AI is
as,
going to play into that.
that's exactly what I was going to say, Rob. As
100%.
we look at all the AI applications for our customers, one of the biggest assets we have is, yes, their individual data, but also the broader set of data, and then starting to bring in external data like weather, like concerts and events. There's all sorts of data about your guests that we can bring in as well. And so I think, like, to Brian's point about forecasting, telling you what happened is very valuable. And our benchmarking product allows you to understand like how you compare to your peer sets within the industry on a whole bunch of different metrics. But being able to look forward and forecast that is something that our team's thinking really deeply about. How do we apply AI and all of our data sets in new ways to tell people, what to do next and how to plan for this week, this month, today, the next day, et cetera. And it's going to be a huge opportunity for restaurants.
Great.
Agreed. Kelly, do you remember Saturday, June 7th in Boston? Were you there?
I remember that for the last 2 summers, I feel like we've had really rainy
Yes.
Saturdays, and it was
I
like
believe it
beautiful
was the
during
12th.
work. Yeah, it was beautiful during work and then rainy every Saturday in Boston. I do know that.
Yes, I believe it was the 12th Saturday in a row that it was rainy. Don't quote me on that, 12th or 13th. But look, we only got 1 inch of rain, which for the Northeast, not a
that
ton, but it was chilly at 67 for June. And it led to 24% fewer transactions than the year before when it was 81 and there was no rain. And then Miami, they had the opposite effect where the year prior they had a ton of rain, 6 inches of rain. And then this year it was on Wednesday, June 11th, it was sunny. So just really could show the difference in year over year. One little tidbit in Miami, I was in Miami June 2023, and me and my wife were sitting at a sushi bar. We love to sit at the bar when we go out to eat because we like to talk to the bartender. We like to talk to the staff, see how everything's going. And it started to rain while we were there. And it's Florida, it's Miami, it's June, it's going to rain, but the server just goes, there goes my night. Like he was so disappointed. And that was really when it kind of clicked for me that like, oh, this can truly have like a huge effect on an individual even. And look, it stopped raining 10 minutes later, but he was like, that's it. It rained once. It's gone. So yeah.
Everyone changed their plans.
You know that any little tidbit that you share is going to be used against you here, right? So we already know about the $80 pizza. However, you just mentioned something about the server. You guys collect an awful lot of server data as well, in there, who's doing what. And that's not just for the incentive side, but it's the training side as well. I wonder how this data could be used that you could have instantly said to that server, you're right, maybe it's going to impact some of this, but if you push these particular, or if you help the manager to know if you push these particular things, that will increase your tip and your check average, almost like an on-demand kind of thing. They ought to get it right there on the Go handheld. They ought to get it like right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think when you think about some of the opportunities here, one is like, how do you push offers out to guests in real time if we anticipate or we see that sales are slowing or the kitchen has capacity or reservations are canceled? Can you push out offers and opportunities for people in real time is like one. But we also just added this technology on the handheld called the digital chit, which is, that idea of like people used to pass paper from the host stand to the server about a guest, maybe their data from the reservations platform. And like, how do you start to put information at the top of the handheld that tells the server, hey, the guest sitting in front of you might really like this special because they've ordered something similar in the past, or the weather is such that people might want the soup instead of whatever. Add the miso soup to the sushi, and now all of a sudden you've got a cozy meal. Like thinking about those opportunities to leverage those digital touch points and like up the ante on the hospitality in real time is pretty exciting.
You know what the nice thing is about being in so many different industries? You guys have really been making some traction in the hotel industry.
Yeah.
And the hotel industry, they know about those guests. They know what fruit they're eating in the room and stuff. And just to tie into the PMS system that's out there does that. And what you just suggested in customer preference and the word hospitality, right? So many people are scared that we're going to have like AI taking away from service. But in reality, we can enhance service right there, one-on-one at tableside, because they have this device and they put that chit on there. That's like a great idea.
Totally. I mean, the way we think about it is like right now, after a server talks to someone at a table, typically they walk away, turn their back to the room, and type things into a computer, and then go talk to their team in the kitchen and then come back around 5 or 10 minutes later, versus like, how do we put everything they need in their hands so that they can be present and engaged with guests more, and then give them a little bit of extra information about the guests so that they can treat them in a way that really resonates with them and creates hospitality. And the hotel example, like, what if someone knew that, I see Rob Grimes all over the country, and I know you're all over the world. What if, the staff in the restaurant at the next Marriott you go to knows that you are, have whatever status at that chain? There's huge opportunities to connect the dots across
and it is one ecosystem,
moments.
Isn't it? Because it's an ecosystem, by the way, that includes retail, hospitality, and food service. So if I go to a city like New York and Toast is able to put that in my server's hands, as a server, I could have a conversation with somebody about, where to shop locally, what hotel, and the hotels can too. It's all connected, isn't it? And that's, Brian, that's a great lead in for some of this data that you're collecting, new data points because of the connections that your company is making.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, should we talk about food?
Do
Why
it.
not?
Food trends. I got a quiz for everyone.
No.
So one thing that we like to do here is look at we pit the states against each other a little bit to some degree. We like to have a little bit of fun in a fun way. So we look at which states ordered the most seafood per restaurant location to try and level the playing field, because obviously a larger state with a lot more restaurants is going to have a higher number of overall transactions. But if we can break that down by the number of restaurants, we like to look at it. So
Can we phone a
obviously,
friend?
you can phone a friend.
There we go.
What people can put in the chat, their guests too, right?
Yeah.
If you have a guest, go ahead and put it in the
Yeah,
chat.
let's go. I mean, obviously, these are all coastal states. So
A lot of seafood.
Rhode Island
There you go.
is 164% more seafood than the national average.
Wow.
One thing that I think may have contributed, I mean, obviously, Rhode Island has fantastic seafood. And if you've never been, you need to order some clam strips and you need to go. But one thing about this time period, we have included July 4th in this time period. And one of the states that goes out the most, I think the most for 4th of July is Rhode Island. So I think that that is a contributing factor when we're looking at this time period of how much seafood is ordered. And it's also, peak season for Rhode Island. So thought that was really interesting as well. Awesome.
Love it.
Do you get like aha moments when you like read
Yeah.
this? Like, do you get surprises, that just come
We
up?
get
and you
surprises.
never thought
I can
about
tell
it?
you about one surprise. I won't name the location, the city, but we looked at burritos, and we do go in and we look and make sure that there isn't just like one location that's like killing it, right? Because that would skew the numbers. We want to make sure there's like a little bit of a level playing field here. And obviously this is restaurants on the Toast platform. So there's a little, this is our ecosystem we're talking about.
That's
But-
everybody.
Exactly. But burritos in New Mexico was like so extreme, because there's a couple places in New Mexico that sell.
Did he
a
say he
lot
wasn't
of-
going to mention the city?
Oh, I
Not
didn't.
the city, just
not
the
the city,
state.
just the state, not the city.
Oh, okay.
But not the
Oh,
not the
okay.
city. But there are a couple places in New Mexico that sell a ton of breakfast burritos and smaller
Oh.
burritos. So they do like a ton of volume. And then we looked at that and we were like, okay, well that doesn't make sense to share widely, because it'd be a little bit misleading, But we are surprised often by some of the food.
Are they
trends.
great breakfast burritos?
They must be.
I mean, I don't think that they could sell the number of breakfast burritos they're selling if they were that great. It was an
Brian,
extraordinary number of burritos.
Afterwards, you're gonna have to tell me where it is so I can go.
I will. I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of burritos.
Do we need to define what a burrito is?
Totally.
Yeah,
This is
just
like
wanna
is
make
it
sure,
a
right?
sandwich? Is it a sandwich conversation? Is it really a burrito?
Yeah, there
It
you
was
go.
really a burrito, I promise.
All right, we got it. That's cool.
So here's some other, we looked into, a couple of other types of food aside from seafood. And what we found was that, coastal states obviously dominate for seafood. No, I mean, I'm sure people love seafood in landlocked states, but it just doesn't have the same draw. Pacific states actually, like Hawaii, Alaska, Washington, love burgers. I mean, everybody loves a burger, but they really are ordering way more burgers than the national average.
Do we track the type of burger?
We don't track the type of burger. There are many types of burgers. I think that would get like way too granular, but these are burgers for sure. And then fries, Hawaii, I was surprised about personally. And actually Utah was one of the ones where someone was like, wait, why Utah? Utah has a big sauce culture, fry sauce culture there. There's a lot of debate on who invented fry sauce, which is a combination of mayonnaise and ketchup. And
It's not like poutine.
it's not poutine. It is mayo
Fry
chup,
sauce.
basically, right? But Utah has like a great fry culture, and as somebody who loves fried food, I cannot wait to go and have some great fries next time I'm in
I have
Utah.
to say, French fries are a real weakness of mine.
Yeah. What kind of French fries, Kelly? Like
Really, I
basic?
like them all.
Them all. That's a big one, right?
Yeah. How about you, Rob? French fry preference?
I like chips.
Chips?
The thick
Nice.
ones.
Since I'm
The
going
thick-
since I'm going to the UK in a couple of weeks,
There
Yeah.
you go.
do the
Then
chips there.
you put the vinegar on the chips. That's good. That's good.
I
too.
don't do the vinegar thing, but I do like the chips.
You should try it.
I have a
Maybe.
preference for curly fries personally, like seasoned
Ooh.
curly fries, but I like them all
Seasoned.
as well.
Season.
Yes.
There you go.
Seasoned, yes, definitely. And then hot dogs, Nevada. absolutely the glizzy capital of the United States, apparently. There's tons, 130% more than average. And West Virginia, which orders the most retail according to the Hot Dog Association, also a strong preference, followed by
We
Georgia.
should look at what time people order hot dogs in Nevada.
Yeah,
It's like a
absolutely.
late night.
I think it's a late night. It's got to be, right?
It's gotta be.
That's your definition of what's late night versus early morning. We may have different definitions on
We
this.
may.
But a hot dog is good any time of the day.
We
Yeah.
actually do define this as late night is until the end of the 3 o'clock hour. So 4 a.m.
4 a.m. is still late
morning
night.
starts. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be too early.
It might be too early. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
have
I
to
think it's
redefine
too
that.
early.
We'll have to
All right,
look.
well,
And by the way, that's an interesting statistic there if that's what you're seeing, because not that I do this all the time, but sometimes if I'm driving really early, if you were to go to McDonald's, they don't switch over to the breakfast menu until long after 4 a.m. It might be like 5:30 or 6. So, so that's telling you what they see as people are eating.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have seen some data that people are eating breakfast earlier, actually. In terms
Burritos?
of, I didn't necessarily look, I think we were looking at omelets actually instead of burritos in that situation because we were tracking egg prices. But yeah, breakfast transactions are starting to tick earlier and earlier.
Very good. And all day breakfast too, right?
Oh yeah, I mean all day breakfast. That is the other thing about that restaurant that I won't name is that they had all day breakfast, the burrito place. So
Breakfast burritos all day.
all day.
All right, so now we got to define the hours of breakfast. So, okay, but anyway, because we can't figure out what late night is versus early morning, so we
I
can.
think if the bars close at 4 in some cities at least, then
Well, that's-
4 to 5 is still late night.
Still late night.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
fair. That's fair.
We'll see. All right, lemonade.
All
I
right,
love
lemonade.
My kids love lemonade.
I love lemonade as well. And Massachusetts, 36% more lemonade than the national average.
I feel like I contributed to that statistic.
Is that because there's sour people there? Oh, I didn't say that.
Oh, shots fired, Rob.
No, but do you put sugar in your lemonade or not? It's like sweet tea versus regular, right? So, okay.
You have to
Hey,
put sugar.
I'm with you. Or an Arnold Palmer. Then you get both. So.
That's good.
And then Arizona, and lemonade is their national state drink. Their state drink. 13% low average. So step it up, Arizona.
Let's go.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Tipping, hot topic in the United States. We have data going all the way back to 2018, pre-pandemic. And what we've seen in this last quarter, so again, when we look at tipping, it's every quarter because that's what we've done. We want to be consistent with it. And we break this down by full service restaurants and quick service restaurants.
This is the percentage of the tip.
This is the percentage of the tip. So this is what somebody very specifically would add to an order after the initial swipe of a card. So we don't count cash tips. We're only counting cards or digital payments. So
Is there a difference when people, I've seen on some of your guest checks and things, is there a difference when somebody selects to put a suggested tip or the tip amounts calculated on it versus when they don't to the amount?
We looked into this recently because this was a question that we had. We're not, we haven't tracked it over time, but what we found is that people actually tend to stick to the defaults that are, most common, which is like 18,
Very
20,
interesting.
8, 50, it's either, it depends on the restaurant type totally. So it's like 10, 15, 20 or 18, 15, 20. We don't usually see the majority of our restaurants like going above 20 to 22% for the suggested tip. But I think, yeah, absolutely that would potentially have some effect. But, there's also, the difference between 3 and 4 suggested. And then, I think I need to reiterate this. You don't need to use the suggested tip amounts. You can always plug in whatever
Kelly,
you want.
can I put you on the spot on this one for a second?
Of course.
So listen, you can point out my travel. I could point out your travel, right? And whether Toast is in all these countries or not, you travel a lot. And it'd be very interesting to see how those tip trends go because, in the US, they've been arguing for years. Do we tip? Do we not tip? Should we embed it? Should it be a service charge? It'd be very interesting to see if we could predict really what's going to happen here, but also look at the global trends on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we're excited about as we've been expanding globally is the opportunity to give Brian more data to start not just connecting, comparing states and cities, but comparing countries and global cities. So we have aspirations to bring more of that data onto the Toast platform. But agreed. And we're even seeing that, across states in the US. We did some work on that a couple quarters ago, Brian, if you remember, or if I remember correctly. Really about how does different tipping policies and wage policies impact tips across states, and we'll definitely see that across countries as you bring in that cultural aspect and the different regulations in different countries has an impact.
But you guys are also doing, because I'm sitting in New York, so I see this,
Yeah.
the number of bodegas that are here. And last year you announced, Toast Retail, and you're looking at the bodega market. I walk into them and you see this full service food being
Yes.
prepared there, and there's tipping. So I wonder how people tip in retail, which all
Agreed.
these retailers are putting in food service, how they tip in retail versus how they tip in restaurants, and if there's a difference.
Yeah, can't wait to see more of the data on that as well. Same point. As we're adding more onto that platform, we've got the opportunity to pull that apart. But I agree. I was in New York a couple weeks ago, and I went into a bodega and ordered a salad. And they had a full salad bar from scratch. I got to pick all my things just like I would at one of the large salad chains. And and then of course you feel like you want a tip at the end of that transaction, because I'm not just picking up a Diet Coke and a bag of chips while I'm grabbing an Advil. I'm getting a full
And you're getting
meal
personalized service.
and
Absolutely.
service. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I
Mhm.
think really when it comes, and I like as a former restaurant employee, like I'm an over tipper to it's a problem sometimes. For now I'm revealing more about myself. I tip way too much sometimes. Um, but like I think that
In other
level
words,
is,
you'd skew the curve here, right?
I would totally skew
Better
the
to be
curve
too
here.
big of a
Yeah,
tipper than a stingy tipper, Brian.
100%. I can't agree with that more. But when I truly find myself going to that like 50, 100% tip, it's because I have just like had this great human connection with the person who was either serving me, or a conversation I had with somebody, or the manager, whatever it is. Like that's when I always am like, I just can't help
The
myself.
$160 pizza. I got it.
Yeah, it was
I see
160.
everyone now wants Brian in their area, their service area in the restaurant.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, so what we're seeing here too is, FSR tipping's fallen off. I'm very interested to see as this next quarter closes if we're going to see an uptick again, or if it's going to continue to dip down. Um, but yeah, it's something that I think restaurants need to consider. And being honest and open, I think, is the best policy too. And like about whether there's a service charge, or just being very upfront with guests is like the most important thing.
There's a lot of conversation about tipping, and people really go back and forth. I even know that, people like Shake Shack, did some things with tipping and the
Yeah.
experimentation on that. So this is a big subject, and it's a big subject that, recently in the news in a number of different ways, but tipping is clearly, a very big subject for our industry.
Yeah, I think it's going to continue to be one as well, for sure. Awesome. Real quick, we look at menu prices each month. So this is a different report than the one we were talking about previously, but we track 6 items. We track burgers, we track burritos, we track cold brew, regular coffee, and beer. And we look at the median price each month, all restaurants, all restaurant types, all restaurants on the platform. And we look into how much menu prices are increasing. And one of the things that's been interesting that I think that I have found in looking at this data is that it has been ticking up a little bit slower than some of the other inflation. So when or from what I might expect. So for instance, burgers, the price of beef is all over the place right now for various reasons, but we haven't seen it really tick up until this month. So when we release our our August data tomorrow, timed with the consumer price index, burger prices actually increased. I believe it was 3 or 4%, 3.5, between 3 and
Wow.
4%. So we're finally seeing that's year over year. So we're finally
But
seeing.
you're also looking at
Upgrade.
preferences, right? Because if you get
Yeah.
into things like coffee or alcohol in there, you start seeing a shift as to whether it's just plain coffee or whether it's the premiums and the alcohol as well, right?
Oh, 100%. And so we also, not included in this graph, but we track the 25th percentile and the 75th percentile, so we can see if people are ordering or if prices are increasing at that top level or at the bottom level and versus the median.
Got
So
it.
you get, yep. And then the other one that gets a lot of attention right now is coffee or
Oh, wow.
coffee and cold brew. Coffee is there's a small band in the world where it's grown. So there's if there's effects on weather, if it's drought in that area, it can extremely affect the price of coffee and cold brew. And we had seen it also, kind of leveling out, not going up too much, but then again in August it did start to tick up to, I think it was cold brew rose 4.6% year over year and 0.7% compared to July. So,
and how does pumpkin spice lattes come out?
we'll have to wait.
PSL.
We'll have to wait another month for that data, but I would suspect that lattes would prices would increase and demand would increase as well.
There
Are
you
you a
go.
PSL guy, Rob?
Absolutely. Hot, cold.
Have you had one yet this year?
Yes.
Nice.
Have you
You
really?
could ask me what time of the day I had one today. So
I love that. I haven't, but maybe it'll be my treat for tomorrow.
you can have a PSL with fries.
Yes, there you go.
There you
go. And I think that's it. Just want to plug, all of our data reports since May can be found on blog/data on Toast Tab. And we publish cool stuff every month, every week, and every quarter. So check it out.
Well, so where does this go? I just out of curiosity, what do you add, to this? Like, where do you see the data going? Because gosh, I mean, any conversation, this one, right? You come up with just these new ideas. Hey, what about this? What about that? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, can you, sorry, Rob, can you repeat that one more time? I was reading
I'm just sort of curious. I mean,
Yeah.
you're
New
seeing all
ideas
this.
for
This must
data.
open up a whole can of questions, right? More questions.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question in the chat. Should we read it?
Yeah, well, somebody wants to know about this didn't come from me. They want to know about the price of cold brew and
Yes.
how it's increasing, but its impact on sales volume, or is the sales sort of staying, does it change the mix? I think, is what we may want to look at here.
It doesn't change the mix from what we've seen. The price of cold brew increases, but it's super seasonal. So we see it peak in July and August, and then it start to dip off in September. But no, the cold brew volume from what I've seen has been at an all-time high from the time in which we've been tracking it. So,
Hey,
yeah.
did you I mean, that obviously is a key thing. I've sat in on some technomic studies, and I've sat in on some of the other studies that are out there, and they talk about coffee around the world as the universal piece, right? So it used to be you could track, economies based upon the Big Mac, and now maybe we track it based on the coffee price, right? Which would be an interesting correlation that's out there. But did you mention that you time the release of your data? Did I hear you say that?
Yeah, the menu prices, we time it with the consumer price index, which is the government data that they put out on inflation every month. So we do time that we do release it about 30 minutes before that. And part of the reason is
do you do that because you don't want to skew or impact the rest of the numbers in the stock market and everything else, right?
No, we don't do it. No reason for the stock market at all. It's actually so that there's a little bit of context in those numbers, because when you're looking through those numbers, number one, they can be really dense. Government reports are historically pretty intense to read for a normal person. But we include it just to include a little bit more context for reporters and operators and customers that are seeing how they're looking at it. And then also, if you see food away from home go up a large percent, and then what we're sharing is, well, it's not burritos. So it's just to give a little bit more context there.
And by the way, that food away from home has become so important that, some trade associations like IFMA have, really focused on food away from home as a category. And companies are just specializing on that as a category now, that we see, out there as a trend. And that's just goes to show you, what's out there. You mentioned that you get a lot of inquiries from the other associations, but from the press and I bet the convention and visitors bureaus and people like that. Is there some when you have your heads down all the time in the restaurant industry, you may miss something that somebody asked that impactful question. Is there some really impactful question that somebody has asked you when you presented that just really took you by surprise and you went, oh, I didn't really think of that? Or is there something we should be thinking about based upon what you're seeing?
Yeah, it happens all the time, actually, where there's, just people have really smart people ask really smart questions. I think one recently, which was surprising, and I think it was in a Bloomberg piece, was like, how does putting, it was for Mother's Day. They were asking, how does putting a mother's name on a menu or a menu item impact the sales of that item? Which I thought was I was like, that's something I would have never thought about at all.
And
We did not have data on it, so I can't definitively say. It was a beautiful piece, and we were able to share some Mother's Day insights. But it was one of those things that got me thinking, that's really interesting. And I had never thought
that's
that
where you
might
set AI
impact.
to take a look at,
Truly.
to scour all the menu names,
Yeah.
titles of things, to suggest better naming, to a correlation of pricing, because you do know what people are
Yeah.
calling the items
Yeah.
on menus, right?
Yeah.
And you probably could run an AI search on the data you already have on that. That's just an interesting query that you would have right at
Yeah.
your fingertips.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, the timeline didn't work out where we were able to do that. But also, Rob, that is how we classify menu items. It is AI-based classification. So we do have all of that. We have probably 100 now or 60 that we
Do you
between food and drinks.
publish those classifications? How you're classifying?
We publish we have published a lot of them. Some of them we look at sauces. We don't usually publish our sauce data or our data on sides, but we have shared them in a number of reports. So a lot of it is out there for sure.
But the interesting thing is that the industry has so many definitions of so many things.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you actually could help us to better define, those types of segments, categories of how people actually can measure, because they need to be able to budget, forecast, and plan what they're doing in the future. This is a lot of data. Does this take you a long time to pull all this together and then do the analytics on it?
So I have three wonderful analysts that I work with very closely, and they do a lot of the coding and all of the pulling of the data and making sure that our methodology is sound and we try and poke holes in it. And yeah, it takes a while, but we've gotten to the point where it gets a little bit easier every time because we've done it so many times. So there are things like tipping data is very easy to pull because we do it every quarter, every month, but the fun ones are the ones that we haven't looked into yet, where we're, if we're thinking about, we were having a conversation about table turn times, how has that changed over the last couple of years, or how has sales per
labor hour changed? Do you have
a
parking lot list of things that would be cool to take a look at and then maybe pull? Kelly, I don't know how you go out there and you also determine what it is that both what do your customers need, because they must be coming up with new and unique ways of looking at things.
Totally. I think that's exactly how we come up with the list. First of all, our team is all super close to our customers in the industry, and many of our team, I think more than 60%, have worked in the industry. So we're full of ideas. But every time, to your point, we have a conversation with a customer or with someone in the industry like you, I know Brian's head gets full of a million more ideas, and you do have a parking lot of things you want to look into. Isn't that right?
It is a large parking lot. Yes.
Yeah.
You must but once you have all the data and it's stored, and if you have the right tools to do the queries, it's a matter of how you ask the question.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then what's
Definitely.
interesting, what's going
Yeah.
to be interesting, spark a conversation, get someone to think differently about their business or the industry. And I think that's a lot of what we share too, is what's going to be interesting to the different stakeholders that are looking at the data and give them something to talk about.
Well,
Yeah.
I know that, you're a very good community player, and sharing this data with the community as well as the individual operators to build their business is a big part. I'm sort of curious though, Kelly, as part of the leadership team at Toast, you know, how has this data shaped the way that you look at where your future should be and where you put your efforts, and how you can serve more the market, but also build up the product set?
Yeah, I mean, we are very data focused at Toast in our decision making about strategy and where we're investing. And so we have both this data, but also our own set of data that we look at every day, every week, every month, that helps inform our decision making. So absolutely, it's critical. And watching, sales growth and trends in the industry, and the retail food and beverage crossover is a great example of a trend that we track really closely that's influencing our strategy right now, as well as, what types of restaurants are being successful and what size groups we should be focused on. It all comes into play. So absolutely.
So, since I put Brian on the spot before, why don't I just put you on the spot, right? So, is there some aha moment? I mean, is there an aha moment or something you got out of this? You said, I never would have thought of that, or something that was really surprising to you?
I always learn something new when I hear Brian talk about this data. So, one of the things that even just in this hour I've learned is about how Brian is thinking about high and low price points in different menu items. So that's one I feel like we can dig more into and look at premium mix. So that's the new big idea I got out of this session, is digging into different levels of prices within these menu items. There's a whole thread to pull there that's going to be really fun, I think.
I remember a long time ago, I sent a picture to you of a restaurant. I forget where it was. It might have been North Carolina or South Carolina. It was called Toast.
Okay.
And so I'd sent a picture, and it occurs to me that, boy, you guys, could open up a restaurant, on this, and, you'd have all that itself. But, you
There's
didn't.
actually a lot of restaurants called Toast,
There are. We have one in my
or
area too.
variations of it. We could probably pull some data on that too.
How much does the word toast mean to the public and the audience that's out there? So listen, this was an awful lot of data, and there's a lot of insights that are here, and we can see on this screen right now how many different restaurant locations. We're pulling this data, and there's so much more to go in here. So you have, first of all, a new report coming out 30 minutes before the
Yes, tomorrow at 8 a.m.
8 a.m.
Yep.
So let's make that available, to the membership and things. We'd be happy to post that and get that out there. I'd also love to see us continue this conversation, maybe even have some operators on at some point on this. But so if people want more information, besides going to FS Tech next week and some of the other places you are, because you're everywhere, how should they get this data, and how do they subscribe?
Yeah, so we do have a newsletter on Data by Toast. So if you go to that link right there that's on the screen, pos.toasttab.com/blog/data, at the bottom of the page, there is a subscribe button there, so you can see all the great insights that we have. And then I'll also plug really quick, on the 29th, it's National Coffee Day. So we're going to do like a double click on, kind of similar to what we did here, coffee prices and coffee trends by state.
So you can have some coffee along with your toast.
Exactly.
Got
What
it.
a better combination.
There you go. Well, listen, we covered. I mean, this conversation could obviously continue for quite a while, and it's fascinating data, and I really appreciate, and I think everybody appreciates, the industry appreciates the fact that you would pull this together, that you would do this initiative and share it, and obviously the IFBTA, appreciates the support, but also that you're sharing and allowing us to be a part of this platform as well and have the conversation. So, I want to thank Brian and Kelly for joining us in a conversation, but really they led the conversation, and brought a lot of interesting data out there. And I would, at 8 a.m. tomorrow, I would certainly suggest that you go ahead and you see what the latest data is that's out there. But thank you so much for bringing this webinar and this data to life and supporting our industry in this way.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. So
Thanks for having us, Rob.
And thank you for everyone who attended, downloaded, is going to share this with their friends, and because it really is an important piece to making us all grow together. So thank you very much. And thank you for joining us and the IFBTA and Toast today.